right. And we are live. My name is Todd with AVNirvana.com, and welcome to another episode of AV Nirvana Live. Tonight we have two very special guests. One is our very own Michael Scott, the movie critic extraordinaire. If you aren't following him on our website, you are missing out big time on some really excellent reviews. He gives great backgrounds on movies, but he also details picture quality, audio quality. So if you're a collector or a fan of quality movies in your home, definitely come over and check him out. So he's going to be joining us in the second half of this live stream. And in the first half, we have Luke O'Brien from Kaleidescape. He is their director of content. Luke is going to talk to us a little bit about the behind the scenes things that go on at Kaleidescape in terms of bringing content in and what they do with it. And then he's going to join Michael Scott and I, and we are going to talk about some of the best movies that have been released so far this year, and also our favorite top 5 favorite films from the 1990s. So a couple quick house clean things. One, we just finished our giveaway with SVS. We gave away a 4K HDMI 2.1 or an 8K HDMI 2.1 cable. Thank you so much to our friends at SVS and member JDubs75. Jeff, I know you're out there. Congrats on the win. That's being shipped out to Jeff right now. Also, we have several new Base Hunters episodes getting ready to launch. There's been a little delay because I've been on vacation and had a couple other things going on, but we are going to be launching Jurassic World: The Black Phone, which was an interesting horror movie that had a couple really neat base moments. And of course, the one that I think a lot of people are going to be really super stoked about, that's Top Gun Maverick, that just dropped today in lossless Dolby Atmos on Kaleidescape. I gave it a watch this morning. It is ridiculously good. I think this is going to be the hit film of the year. Previously, I thought Ambulance might be it. I know there's a lot of lovers of Dune out there, but I think Top Gun Maverick is definitely going to take the cake. So we got that going on. And we also have some really fun AV Nirvana shows lined up. We're going to have Robert Zone on from Value Electronics. He's going to give us some tips on what to look for when you're buying a new TV. We have Dwayne Davis. He's a calibrator extraordinaire. He's going to come on and talk to us about calibration and give us some ideas of little tweaks you can do to your TV when you buy it new. So if you don't have calibration gear or you don't want to pay for a calibrator, he's going to give you some tips on what to do to make your TV sound better. And we're also going to have our friends from SVS come on, and we're going to talk subwoofers, and they're going to give us some tips on how to set up a subwoofer. So without further delay, I'm going to bring on Luke O'Brien. Luke is, as I said, director of content at Kaleidescape. He's been there almost 19 years. And one thing that I just found as I was looking over his resume on LinkedIn is he is a grad of Earlham College. And that is my mom's alma mater and a direct competitor of the college I went to. Luke, I know you're from Ohio.
Oh, yeah.
And I went to the College of Worcester.
Well, the College of Worcester, where many of my friends went, because I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, the greatest city on earth.
Sure.
And super excited to have somebody from our division come through, fight, inner light, kill Quakers, kill. We're glad to represent the alma mater as it comes out.
That's great. Yep. So there you go. So fighting Scots versus the Quakers.
Hustling Quakers. They made that transition when I was there. We don't want to be fighting Quakers anymore.
Yeah, I had a lot of friends from the Cleveland area, and back when I went to school out there, we used to hit the flats, and it was big hair, and it was a thing. That's for sure.
What little you remember fondly.
That's right. So Luke, tell us a little bit about what director of content means over at Kaleidescape.
So I have a team that I work with. It's the content operations group. So I've been here for a while. So that's evolved from when Kaleidescape first started shipping servers and players. They were designed to help make sure we had coverage of all the DVDs and Blu-rays that you had in your collection. And now that's evolving into supporting the best digital store for movies that exists on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And so our goal is to make sure we're gathering the content that's sent out to us by the licensors, packaging it in as lossless a format as we can to get it out into the field, and creating objects that can download to Kaleidescape servers so they can watch it at home in pristine quality.
Right. And I'm sure a lot of folks want to know. I mean, when it comes to discs, they're just kind of fed whatever the studios are putting out there. And of course, every studio that wants to put something out on disc puts it out on disc, right? So when it comes to Kaleidescape, Kaleidescape is kind of a gatekeeper in some ways of what ends up in the library, which is something like 13,000 different titles, I think, to date, if not.
Fast approaching 14,000 movies that are going to be on offer as it comes through.
Okay. So there's a ton of movies, but who makes the decision on what makes it and what doesn't, and how does all that work?
So it's so there's two primary drivers. One is new release availability. So that's going to be the first thing that's coming through. We want to make sure if one of our licensors has a title that they're excited about, that they want to put in front of their audience, we're the way that they can do that. So we want to make sure we've got a bandwidth to support that as it comes through. The rest of it is really all driven algorithmically. We're taking a look at, what have those legacy customers of ours purchased and loaded onto their older systems? What have they been watching? What are titles that are similar to this or with similar directors or cast members? How are they performing as they come through? And we take a look at it and we try and maximize what we think will be the content that our customers are going to be most interested in bringing home.
Okay. And once you make that decision of, you have a relationship with a studio, they have a movie you want, how does that movie get there? Because, there is this misnomer that Kaleidescape simply takes a physical disc and rips it into their library.
So we've got a couple of different ingestion paths. The most common one that we have right now is mezzanine ingestion. And what that means is that the studios, when they have their finished film, they make a tiered version of what that movie is. They approve it to go out into their digital distribution channel. And it's a huge file, huge, enormous file that comes through. And they send that out to the digital partners that are going to come through here. They make it available to us. We download it on a deeply secure path into a isolated, secure environment where we run it through our internal processes where, that's the man behind the curtain stuff where all the secret sauce gets added, and turn it into this elegant object that can then be downloaded onto the customer systems.
So you're given this mezzanine file and basically take that in and code it into your system, which the players then decode on the user end once they own the movie.
Once they own the movie, they get a download of the film and they get a register of purchase rights that lets it light up so that it can be played back. And then they hit the play button and the movie plays as it comes through.
Mm-hmm. And that's true of the rental option that you recently rolled out within, I think, about the last 2 years. Is that a movie that's also downloaded onto the system, watched, and then it's magically erased?
100%. There's no streaming on Kaleidescape. It's all a download model. And we do that because that's the only way that you can get a true lossless experience. Mm-hmm. We know the quality when it's actually living there on a local server in your local area network. It's incomparable with what you're going to be able to see as it's getting choked on different bandwidth paths as it comes through.
Right. And in terms of comparing it to what you see on a disc, because it's very easy to call it disc quality, because for most people, the disc is the ultimate way of getting pristine quality into your house. But there's times where the Kaleidescape file size is significantly larger than what you get on a disc. So what does that mean exactly in terms of what the customer is experiencing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the studios are doing a great job getting the disc authoring that they put out together, but they are bound by what's going to fit on the disc that they have to market. So they have a certain capacity model that they're trying to hit. We're unbound there. We're only bound by what we think the highest bit rate the systems will be able to comfortably, constantly play back is. Mm-hmm. And so we frame the movie together, try and get it into a reasonable degree and get it out. And there are going to be times when it's better than what you'll see on a black box Blu-ray. It's not going to be worse.
Right. And is there a percent? Let's see. How can I ask this question?
Sure.
When the file size, let's say it's 20 gigs larger, is usually that pertain to the picture itself, or is that audio also?
It
What
could be either.
what's
It's going to be. I couldn't give you a mathematical breakdown on
okay?
where the bitrate contribution comes from. Usually, with a gap of that size, it's probably going to be mostly in the video file as it
Wow.
comes through, because the audio file is going to be pretty comparable as we have it out there. Although, depending on what the disk setup is, they might be stacked with 14 languages, and we only offer a handful of languages for our particular domestic markets, and so that could be contributing to the growth on their end as it comes through too.
Okay. Which markets, by the way, are you predominantly operating in now? Is it
So we have 3 storefronts. There's a storefront in the United States, there's one in Canada, and there's one in the United Kingdom.
okay? Are there plans to expand?
There's many plans. There's many plans for us to continue to grow the store every way that we can. We don't have any announcements, unfortunately, today
Yeah.
on new territories that we're launching in.
Sure. Okay. So once you guys have encoded a file, I know there's some interesting things that kind of happen behind the scenes in terms of what your team does to ensure quality.
Yeah, I mean, one of the secret weapon that I really have is my team. We have human eyeballs that look at all of the video frames as they come through in order to make sure we're getting the best experience we have. So we actually have people that sit down and watch the movie and look to see, hey, did our transcode process introduce anything that's problematic?
Mhm.
Is there banding in the scene? And if not, we have a different transcode recipe adjustment that we put it through to make sure it comes out, so we get something that is much more faithful to the actual videos file that came from the studio to us originally.
So you get guaranteed quality on the user end because somebody's already taken the time to ensure.
It's already been vetted, so we try and make sure it's there. We look for audio drops that might be introduced. We look for glitching in playback. We look for a way that anytime that something might have led to unexpected color shifting as it comes through. And, I mean, we end up being, a line of QA for, the licensors that we're working with and the processing houses that they're using. Maybe they forgot an overlay, and we can flag that to them and get it back, and they can get the file corrected and get it back in our hands before our customers have to experience need to get them a movie update coming down to their system.
Now, are people on your team in a room that has surround sound, Dolby Atmos sound along with the image to get the full experience, or is that?
Yeah, we try and replicate the home experience as best we can. So we have we just finished remodeling one of our rooms. We have a large 65-inch TV that's there, so we can get a full frame image of an OLED display. We have just worked with one of our partners, Meyer Sound, to get some beautiful speakers put in. We have it on a 5.1 surround display. We're not in an Atmos environment, so we're not going to be able to judge where there might be metadata mistakes as it comes through. But that's not where we're normally seeing issues. Usually if there's a problem in the mapping, it's at the core, and there's an issue with just how things have been mapped between left and right and center. Maybe they switched left and right, and we're going to be able to diagnose that and get that node in to get it reprocessed.
Right. And one thing I was talking about to you behind the scenes before we went live is this notion of updates, because when you buy a physical disc, unless there's a huge error, right? And the movie house then redistributes discs to all of the customers that purchased an error disc. You're usually not seeing that. So, and Kaleidescape, I was telling you, I just noticed there is an ambulance update that was dropped. What is that? What does that mean? What kind of update is that?
So it can mean a variety of different things. One of them can be that in our QA process, we did not catch a subtitle overlay issue, and we want to get a correction out to that. It could be that we're seeing ways that we can improve the process. A lot of the updates that have gone out recently, we've started offering lossless PCM stereo, because we know there's a growing 2-channel market that's out there that we want to make sure we're taking care of. And we're including that in more of the versions, since we're getting good updates of those out into the field.
Interesting. Okay. And let's talk about new releases, because today at 3 a.m. my system lit up with Top Gun Maverick, and it's really cool that you can pre-order a movie, and there's a process that happens that gets it into your home before it actually launches. Correct?
Yeah, Maverick Day, a special day. I've been working with my team on this for weeks now in order to get everything right. Gerald, my primary reviewer, did an amazing job getting that movie ready to go out into the field. And once he was happy with where everything was, we release it so that everybody that's pre-ordered it can get the download ahead of time, so that when it comes to launch day, as soon as your system updates your permissions, the movie goes live. That can take a couple of hours. It's not usually directly at midnight, because it's when your system is cycling back to check for the update and the permissions as it comes through. But it happens quickly, and most of the people aren't midnight movieing. Most of the people want to know that on launch day, when they're having their cereal or they've gotten home from work for their special Maverick treat, it's waiting for them as they come in.
I did have thoughts about staying up.
Yeah, no, it was very, very tempting. If I hadn't had a chance to watch it all weekend in QA rooms, I would have done the same potentially.
Yeah, it's a beautiful release. Tell me a little bit about the bundle packages you guys have been putting together, because they are, I mean, as a consumer, and I do own a Kaleidescape system, it's just really cool to be able to, travel into a Friday and all of a sudden, boom, you see 20, 30 movies that are grouped together, and you can purchase them for, $9.99 each if you want. You can pick and choose a la carte. So what goes behind that?
Isn't that great? So Heather Grundeman's our new VP of Customer Engagement. And, one of the things that she put at the lead is she wanted the store to be as customer friendly as it possibly could. And so she's been really aggressive about getting more price reductions and sales in front of customers in a way that kind of offers them these movies that they're dynamically interested in, and gets them pulling in movies to watch them. So the super bundles are great. We're working with our licensing partners, and they give us a screaming deal if we say, hey, if our customers are going to buy at least 3 of these movies, will you give us a great discount on it? And so we offer all of the X-Men movies. And if you want to get 3 of those films, then there's a great discount price that you're able to get that applies to it. Yeah. And so it's been a really popular feature as it comes through. And I think a lot of people are, picking up parts of the series that they had never picked up before and adding it to their library, so they have this more robust collection that comes out because of it.
For sure. And just for the viewers, the super bundle is basically just like Luke said. They'll give you a selection of movies, and if you pick at least 3, say, from my experience, the movies can be as cheap as like $5.99,
right?
Which is a huge get, especially for a 4K release.
Right, and we're a premium service, and so we've had premium pricing that's been part of what we have together on our offers. So there's a lot of people who have been taking advantage of this to kind of go in and see movies that they've been wary of before. Now's their opportunity to strike and get it in there and grow their collection.
For sure. And that's a little different than the kind of generalized sales that you also have in larger groups of movies.
Yeah, so usually the larger sales are on a broader theme. They're not as narrow in scope. And those are just there so that we're in season. We're going back to school, and we want you to know, hey, here's a bunch of stuff that may be a treat for your kid when they come home on Saturday because they've had a rough week at school. So they're going to queue up Diary of a Wimpy Kid and get themselves watching to decompress from how the week had gone.
Right. And in terms of other special offers, you guys have pulled together some promotions with some of the industry's really big names, Trenov and Meyer Sound.
Yeah, no, I think one of the things that we're trying to do is because we are the best way to watch movies at home, and because we're a system that's going to elevate every component in your theater, we're trying to really more actively work with these partners who are what we're elevating. If you want to hear things in an extraordinary fashion out of Meyer Sound speakers, you want a source device like Kaleidescape. If you want to have that audio piped through for the perfect things, get a Trenov into your system so it comes through. And one of the things that we've done is we've created programs where if you're buying both of them, you can get special curated content sets that we get on offer that we're able to get over to you along with the purchase price of all the other equipment that you're getting as it comes through. And these are great because these are the folks over at Trinov and Meyer. They're using their vast experience doing audio demos, selecting the movies from our store that they know are really going to shine when they come out of their speakers or through their audio processor.
And I believe that Meyer Sound deal is roughly $1,000 worth of movies, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that is exactly correct. And so that's a great $1,000 discount off the entire package that you're able to take for yourself to get these great movies, this great equipment, and an incredible player and server to watch them.
Yeah, and a lot of great movies. Who selected those movies? Were they part of the selection process?
I gave some feedback, but really the guys over at Trinov and the guys at Meyer drove the process as it came through. They had some really strong opinions from movies that they had that Meyer had worked on in the past and that they had demoed aggressively before. They sort of really understood the stuff that was going to really shine as it came through their programs.
Yeah, in terms of your customers, do you find customers reaching out to Kaleidescape, making requests for certain movies?
All of those requests come to me. So yes, I find it all the time, Todd. There's a lot of content that we would like to have on the store, and Heather, our engagement VP, is continually reaching out to new licensors, and anytime that we can add a new licensor to our service, we will. We're just continuing to do the work to kind of identify deals that work for everybody, so we can move forward on that. And so that's the heart of where a lot of the requests come from. And there's a lot of them which are, making requests for titles that have not found their way onto digital yet. And so, we're really hopeful. We've got all of the major studios signed up, and we've got an incredible stable of independent filmmakers that are tied into us as well. We're hopeful those movies are going to find their way through their process and make their way onto our service.
I think I probably speak for the entire world when I say True Lies. Is that?
Well, now you're talking about a different subcategory, which is great. So we know who the licensor is for that film. It's just that the folks that own the movie have a holdback on it. And so when they have a holdback on a film, I don't know what the circumstance is with that particular movie, but it could be a music clearance right. It could be that the content creator has decided, hey, I do want to put this one out, but I really want to go back and revisit it as it comes through. So I can get some of these things that I liked on the release we did before really right for the next stage that I take it to. And so some of those we have to be patient and wait for those guys to clear up and get clearance so that we can bring them out to the service.
Okay. Got a question from a viewer, Bob O'Hara. Bob, thanks for chiming in here. He says, speaking of permissions, what happens to the movies I bought if the permission server fails or is not able to be contacted when I want to play title, not a day of release title?
So this is an interesting question. So the Kaleidescape system only has to be online when you're downloading content, and most of our customers keep the systems online because their dealers have a dashboard that can constantly monitor the health. So if you have a hard drive that gets into trouble, they can be proactive before something goes wrong. They can get in there and get out and replace it. But you could also take your system up to your cabin in the woods, pull it offline. You don't have any internet up there. Your movie playback still works. It's all there, locked in your system. Plug it in, hunker down, watch The Bear, whatever cabiny movie you want to watch that all work through.
The Revenant.
Right.
Okay. And you had kind of hinted there. Is there a separate way that you're sourcing movies beyond working with the movie houses and having the mezzanine files sent over?
Yeah, we have multiple onboarding paths, and so that's all secret sauce stuff that we go into. So we don't talk about that as it comes through. But yeah, for sure.
Okay. Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we jump into talking movies with Michael Scott?
No, I just really appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about the system. We're constantly growing our movie store. It's been an unbelievable 2021 for us. We've seen so much growth in all phases of our company, and we're excited. We have great customers who've really been investing in their home cinemas, trusting us to be the thing that's going to kind of give them that theatrical experience at home. We're really excited to see it come through.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think from the customer side, it's the last couple years have been really exciting with the new equipment that's rolling out. Performs at such a high level, but also, one of the big rubs on Kaleidescape that you frequently hear is, well, the movies are really expensive, and that really has not been the case over the last year, from my perspective. Like today with Top Gun Maverick dropping in 4K HDR with Dolby Atmos, lossless audio, it's $24.
Yeah.
So,
more and more, we're trying to do things to make it so that you can engage with as much of your content as possible. We want to get movies in front of people's eyes. That's what we want the service to do as it comes through.
Awesome. All right. Well, listen, let's bring on Michael Scott. Like I mentioned before, Michael is our media review manager, chief film critic, movie guy extraordinaire, and you guys haven't picked up, Luke is also a big-time movie buff, and I guess you have to be a movie buff if you work somewhere for 19 years, and the main content is movies. And folks, by the way, we can't see Luke. We're having a little bit of a video issue, so that's why he is the circle on your screen there. But Mike, welcome.
Hey, how are you doing, Todd?
Just fine. So I wanted to kick things off by talking about from both of your perspectives. What are the biggest releases of 2022 so far? And kind of let's talk about reasons why. But Mike, do you want to kick things off?
Sure. I was looking, when you asked me, like, oh, check out the 2022 releases, I'm like, okay, I got a bunch lined up. And I'm realizing, wait a second, most of these titles came out in 2021. We're just seeing the discs now in 2022. Crud. Wait, there really hasn't been that much good stuff here. I mean,
wow.
What I mean is not great stuff. I mean, 2022 has been a weird dearth year for us, I've noticed.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of streaming service exclusives, which just don't seem to have the magic of a Hollywood exclusive. Things like Infinite,
that's really true.
Prey, the list goes on with those types of movies. And Infinite hurt me really bad simply because I'm a huge Anton Fuqua fan. Like, I mean, I go back to the Replacement Killers and stuff like that, and when I saw Infinite, it was just like, ow, Antoine, what have you done to me?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the streaming service movies. I think what was there was one that recently was released on Netflix. You just mentioned it.
The Gray Man?
I believe that was it. I saw that was. Yeah. I saw that for that in the movie theater when I saw Top Gun.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, but it was one of those things where I said, this is a $200 million movie from the Russo brothers. Where did the $200 million go? When I watched it. The one that actually surprised me was Prey. I was expecting nothing from that movie.
It was spectacular. That's the one that it's through the FX on Hulu, property that Fox is putting out there. I'm hoping they find a way to wind that over to digital, because I thought just a spectacular use of action set piece design in that movie. Just absolutely beautiful, totally engaging to watch, and a real star at the center of it.
I'm going to go a little lower than you on the grading, but I did admit that visually it was one of the most engaging films, especially watching it a second or third time and watching the amount of detail that they put into it.
It's really interesting.
The scenery was amazing. The cut shots were great. And I loved the way that they kind of devolved the Predator into either, shall we say, a devolved version or one of the lower race tiers, subclasses of the Predator species, to match up with the Native American motif.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would have been just, okay, movie's over in 5 seconds.
So I've got a list pulled up here of the top-selling Blu-rays in 2022. And at the very, very top, we have Spider-Man, No Way Home, close to 30 million done.
Yeah.
Was that released this? That was released this year.
Yeah.
Yes, it was
Correct?
released this year. Okay, yeah, that was actually one of my favorites of the entire year, and that shocked me because usually the third in a trilogy is kind of the all right, Sam Raimi's going to walk you out to pasture. And I usually hate the member berries that comes with the fan service with those types of films, where they bring in old characters, and we're just like, okay, yeah, you got to bring in somebody because nobody wants to watch what you're given. But they did it such a lovely homage versus just being cheesy member berries.
And they were it was interesting because Garfield and Tobey Maguire were so game, so excited to be there, so sincerely present in that movie that they didn't have the appearance of people showing up to check in for a quick second and then punch away. I think it's interesting because Maverick is going to be the biggest movie of the year in every metric that we can put out. We're on Maverick Day. Happy Maverick Day to you. And that's another movie that really was unabashed in its embracing of nostalgia. I mean, what do we have, like 4 minutes of Tom Cruise just staring at his leather jacket? And and it worked because of how sincerely it was done. And I think that's one of the interesting things about it is that the winking nostalgia seems to have worn on some people. That's the stuff that when it feels like they're trying to hook you with it, you resent it a little bit more. Yeah. And when there's some amount of affection that they're putting for it as it comes through, you have that energy that you feel if you go to Comic-Con and you see the way that people feel when they're interacting with these stars that have showed up to actually engage with them. There's this good palpable synergy that happens on screen that makes there. And also neither of them, I can't believe I'm saying this about No Way Home, but neither of them did it as much as I was worried they would.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Do we have to have a shirtless scene on the beach? Of course we do in Maverick. That's just it's an absolute fact. That's exactly right. These are absolutes. You can't do the movie without them. But so much of what was going on outside of it was original and interesting. I loved that we got in A No Way Home the amount of time we got to spend with Dafoe, doing his villain and not doing it to the wild, out of film, almost borderline kabuki extreme that he did in the first Spider-Man movie. Was delicious to watch him do a humanizing thing, which makes the villainy that he exhibits later even harder to take. Like there was some good story beats that they put in that helped really pull it along.
He stole every scene he was in. It
was amazing.
Well, Maverick, I think it's also partially because I think Tom Cruise is the last actual billable movie star out there.
It seems that way.
I mean simply people go see it because it's Tom Cruise. Yeah. Instead of we're seeing it because it's a franchise, it's a director who's been doing this. They go to see a movie because Tom Cruise is in it, and he delivers 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. Well, I will
remember The Mummy at all.
But, that's right. Skip right over that. If we're talking about great movies from this past year, though, I mean, another one that's right on that border of what its release schedule was, but I know its viewership is 100% 2022. And it's probably my favorite movie of the past year. It's Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is just an absolute delight in every way that a movie can be to me. I mean,
that was going to be my surprise hit of the year, my sneak hit.
Yeah.
That and Black Phone.
Yeah, and Black Phone, I mean, that came out of left field for me. I did not expect it to kind of go gangbusters at the box office the way that it did.
I did not see that at all. I even didn't see it when I was watching the disc. I was like, all right, Ethan Hawke looks kind of cool. I'll watch it. And wow, this is the most atmospheric film I've seen all year.
That's interesting. I just downloaded the Everything Everywhere All at Once. I have not seen that yet, so I guess I need to bump that up.
My favorite thing about that movie is however somebody tries to prepare you for that movie, you will not be prepared.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It is in the genre blender. It is a very strange movie. I saw it opening weekend at the Alamo Draft House. I went in to check it out as soon as it came through after getting some notices from my friends at A24. And I was just going to see it because I think Michelle Yeoh is, just a global treasure. And I was happy to see what she was going to do. And I walked out of there, the audience cheering, shocked as it came through. And to watch that, you watch that box office straight line that it did. It just kept not losing shares week over week, which is unheard of as it comes through. It's that kind of movie that just kind of got into a small environment but continued to get a heartbeat going for it because people kept going, no, it's good. Go check it out. It's good. Trust me, it's good.
It has some incredible legs.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of nods to the past with Spider-Man No Way Home and also Top Gun, we had Ghostbusters Afterlife. That was a 2022 disc release. What do you guys think of that one?
That one was not bad. I thought they did a good send-off to brain dying. The one of the main three who died.
Oh, yeah.
Harold.
Yeah, thank you.
Harold.
My brain is not working today. But yeah, it was very lovingly. You could tell there was not just an homage. They were giving a goodbye story to him, in a sense. Completing the arc.
Oh, and he deserved it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what a career. What a career. And all the wonderful movies that he came out of his head and brought to us.
Like I mentioned before, I'm super sensitive to the whole member berries nostalgia bait thing. But it was another one like No Way Home where I felt they did it properly.
Mm-hmm. Now, were you offended, Mike, by A Force Awakens?
Well, let's not get into that.
Okay.
Anyways, joke on it. No, The Force Awakens I thought was okay. It had the possibility, but I'm also one of those people that thinks The Last Jedi is the worst movie ever created in the entire Star Wars fan base.
That's right. Let's not go down that rabbit hole because I can't spend an hour explaining to Mr. Scott why he's wrong. It's the best Star Wars movie they made. Rian Johnson's a genius. The democratization of the Force is the greatest concept that they've had in the entire series. It's spectacular on every front.
Set the battlefield.
So this year we also have Dune hit, No Time to Die, and The Batman.
Yeah, all those
big titles.
Spectacular to watch. I think the Dune fell in my last year considerations as it came through. But you know, Villeneuve just does no wrong for me. He makes these movies that are just beautiful, sumptuous, and they have these not just overwhelming but surprising auditory experiences. Like it's a really beautiful
jump, but he loves to create nuance in every tone he puts out.
100%. I mean, Arrival is probably the king of those movies as it comes through. Yeah. But to see him incorporate that into this movie, and it's also just a spectacular adaptation of a beloved book.
And he loves to blur the line between hero and villain.
Yeah.
Like Sicario is still one of my favorite films of his.
Yeah.
That's a good one. For sure. What The Batman, Luke, how did you feel about that one?
I keep asking myself, what are they ever going to improve upon Michael Keaton? And the answer to that is obviously no. I thought he was just unbelievably good as Batman, and I thought he was terrible as Bruce Wayne. But that's okay because the movie didn't really ask us to spend much time with Bruce Wayne.
But we're not going for George Clooney here? The most
George Clooney, spectacular. He loved those nipples. He really, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was, I thought the villains in that, the villains make a movie, and I thought the villains just had a wonderful time. I think Paul Dano getting on a pole vault and jumping as far over the top as a person could go for his crazed, revenge-filled character. And then the polar opposite of that, which is Turturro shows up with just delicious, quiet menace as one of the other lead bad guys. I thought they were the things that made the movie really compelling. I think people pay a lot of service attention to the detective-y nature of it. And I think from a plot beat perspective, that's true. But that's not what I remember. I remember the Batmobile flashing and a gorgeous chase scene and Colin Farrell cackling hilariously as he's penguining it up as hard as a person could penguin. It's a very fun movie to watch, I think, and looks great on the Kaleidescape. Just to put that out there.
Yeah,
keep it scored home.
The 4K disc that I watched was unbelievable. It was such deep black levels.
Yeah.
And like I said, I loved the movie in many ways. The only thing that really drew me out was the last act just drug on a little too far, and I never was a fan of Paul Dano being a little too much of a Joker clone at the end.
Yeah, they're
enough to where it tweaked my little, interest a little bit.
They're setting up sequels for us. That's for sure.
I think I need to give that movie another watch. I watched it with 5 friends. None of us liked it. And when it was over, one of them said, I can't believe they actually screwed up Batman. So I'm not sure if it was the air in the room or what, but I just kind of found it just a little too extra. I don't know. There was something about it that just wasn't fun.
Yeah,
and,
it's certainly joyless.
Yeah, it really is.
It really is a bleak movie.
It really is.
I'm kind of halfway in the middle between Luke and Todd. And then I enjoyed a large percentage of it, but Todd's gripes I can totally see.
Yeah,
it's interesting though. So many people loved it.
It was polarizing. I've seen the exact opposite. I've seen some serious hate for it, and then I've seen a lot of love for it too.
Right.
It seems to be one of those ones you either like it or love it. I mean, hate it or love it.
Well, speaking of hating it, how about the Matrix?
The Matrix is
the Resurrections.
If you've read my review, you know I was a little harsh on it.
So I'm going to disagree with both of you guys. I mean, was it as much a sequel to Sense8 as it was to the sequel to The Matrix? Sure. But I think as a movie, I really enjoyed Keanu Reeves' game designer so much. That entire opening act where he is dealing with his age and his existential angst and spending some time in these sort of scenes of connectivity with Carrie-Anne Moss. I loved that. I loved that as a set piece for a film as it came through. They turned it into a Matrix film later and had some beautiful action displays and some nice soundtrack work that was okay to listen to. I wasn't as into that part of the movie, but I did enjoy the core that came out before that as it came through for it.
Interesting take. I mean, I wish I could tell you anything about the movie because I turned it on and I fell asleep within the first 5 minutes and I woke up to the credits. So that's my review.
That tells you everything you need to know.
It was a great nap, though. Yeah. I really needed that one. Yeah. Any other releases this year that you guys think are highlight worthy?
Well, just to go balance for your audience, I'll put a couple of things out there that aren't going to blow away your home theater system, but I was surprised by them and their quality as it comes through. The first one, which surprised me that I called this out, I wrote this down as we came here. I thought "Marry Me" was very good. I thought that J-Lo getting together with Owen Wilson, that doesn't make sense.
I actually had to agree. It was it felt like a 90s rom-com in many ways.
And it was perfectly executed for a 90s rom-com. And, it's better music from her in there than I had heard on many of her recent albums as it came through. I thought I was being forced to watch it, and I had the hanky out at the end of the movie as it came through.
I generally like Owen Wilson, so it was kind of an easy
watch.
And I'm sorry, what has she sacrificed and what has she done? How is J-Lo still looking that good and she's this many decades?
Tell you what, I tell you what, if only we all could, we would be happier people. In fact, nobody knows. My camera is off, so I could look like J-Lo. Nobody knows. So it's a mystery.
I'm going to bring one last one into the fold, and that was what we talked about earlier. Ambulance.
I
loved Ambulance simply because I loved good old-fashioned Michael Bay before he went off the rails with the last Transformers movies.
Yep.
Like, Armageddon, stuff like that. It felt very much like that. It went a bit longer than I would have liked. Like, it just kind of drug at the very end. But Jake Gyllenhaal was hamming it to a level 11, like Peter Stormare type acting. Just grinning and chewing the scenery like it was made out of candy.
I really enjoyed that one too for the same reasons, Mike, as you're talking about. It just drew me right back into what we're going to be talking about in a moment, the 1990s.
Yeah. I thought that movie was great. I was excited to get it ready for demonstration. And I realized then that I cannot demonstrate that movie because there is an F-bomb in every beautiful set piece that they have. It is for the adults as it comes through. It is some salty language as they come through. I liked it. I really did enjoy that sort of unadulterated adrenaline. Just inject it directly into my veins.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. And the image quality on that movie is insane. It looks so different than what we're used to seeing, and you guys can probably explain this better, but it looks so crisp to me, almost towards blue, where a lot of movies tend toward the other direction, toward the reds. Did you see it that way?
It was the digital cameras he used. I mean, they were crisp, clear, and weren't they 8K resolution as the max resolution for those?
I think the story was he was using some advanced cameras as it came through. I wasn't sure what the quality line that they had.
Or some really advanced models of the RELX or Reds. I can't remember what, but I remember they were really high resolution.
Yeah, and boy, some of those
beautiful
shots down the skyscrapers.
Yes, the skyscraper shots and the overhead aerial shots from the helicopter they used. That was quite expressive.
Yeah, and delicious. It's interesting because it's another one of these movies where more and more I think what people are realizing is that, the folks that do color timing work, that entire aspect of finishing the film really matters. And those are some of the tech people that are really getting a light shined on them because they make movies that pop, and movies that pop are more and more a key piece of what we're looking for to see something that feels cinematic.
Right.
Absolutely. And like I said, Ambulance just had that cheesy, hammy, like you were grinning from ear to ear with that bit of Velveeta cheese. And Garrett Dillahunt, I love Garrett Dillahunt. He just hammed it up as the, was that FBI officer? Or no?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He was great.
He's never been bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, it did run a little long, but I thought the ending of that movie really wrapped things up well. I mean, he was trapped in that situation that he could not get out of, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it really made you feel claustrophobic.
And what's amazing is Jake Gyllenhaal was a complete jackass in that film if you actually look at it from a moral perspective. But you're rooting for him almost.
Oh, yeah. Totally. I was.
I mean, Jake Gyllenhaal literally took the audience by the head and just pulled them along with him.
along with everybody in the movie.
Although, being a firearms enthusiast, my wife got irritated more than a few times as I'm grumbling throughout the movie. You're not supposed to be doing that. Why are you putting a PDW brace on the back of it?
I thought you were going to tell me you were counting shells for a minute, which is that's also a frustrating experience anytime.
I've given up on that. Otherwise, I would drive myself nuts with, why is a 6-shooter pulling 19 shots? Good old Commando days, you were like, wow, that 30-round magazine has been going full auto for like 10 minutes.
Right, of course. Awesome. All right, so I'm a little afraid of doing this because I almost feel like I'm taking cookies over to Martha Stewart's house with you two.
I like cookies.
I think my top 5 of the 90s is going to read like a meathead list. But let's get this underway. We're going to go from number 5 down to 1. I'm hoping you guys listed yours out that way.
I tried.
So, Luke, why don't you lead us off here with your number 5 favorite film? And by the way, these are favorite films, maybe not necessarily the best film. I guess you could argue they are the best film from your perspective, but
yeah,
these are our favorite films from the 1990s.
No, like Goodfellas is not going to show up on my list, even though it's definitely one of the best movies that was made in that period. Oh, yeah. For me, in the 5 hole, it's one of potentially the greatest musical of the 1990s. South Park, bigger, longer, and uncut.
Great. Oh, yeah.
All right, I'm not going to deny you there.
I mean,
back when Matt and Trey were firing on all 8 cylinders.
What would Brian Boitano do is it's a banger. I don't know what else you can say about it. It's just a brilliantly executed foul-mouthed cartoon in every way, shape, and form.
It is wonderful. Yeah, Saddam and Satan in bed. I mean, you can't get any better than that.
I remember as a teenager, I was crying during that movie.
Yep. Yeah, it's funny. I saw that in the theater, and then I convinced my soon-to-be father-in-law to watch it with me.
Oh man.
And
Big
I don't know if that
mistake.
was a good. Yeah, that might not have been a good idea.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, what do you got?
I just want to say, first off the bat, you are mean for making me do this because this is like choosing my children, which one I love the best, type thing. I'm just sitting there going, I want to add like 15 in here. But all right, bring it down. Number 5, The Fifth Element. Bruce Willis at his peak, Gary Oldman cheesing it up like you wouldn't believe, and chicken good, Mia Jovovich on fire.
That Gautier costume design
Ay, ay, ay.
was stunning, and
We were
it's
teenagers
just
back then, yes.
it's a high comedy. I'm already excited to buy it in 8K. I think it's the #1 movie that I've purchased on formats. I got a DVD. I got a Super Bit DVD. I got the first iteration Blu-ray. I got the remastered Blu-ray. And now I own it. Luckily, the Kaleidescape in the digital world came along, so I got that 4K HDR version. If any updates come through, I'm covered as it comes through.
Totally stunning movie to watch. All right, guys.
All right,
Are you ready?
Let's bring it.
I'm going number 5. I'm going A Few Good Men.
Oh,
Great movie.
Rob Reiner, and of course we have Tom Cruise, which is appropriate for today with the launch of Maverick. But Kevin Bacon, Jack, Demi Moore, just
Sorkin writing at its peak.
Oh, this is one of those movies that I have trouble sleeping at night, and I frequently will listen to something over and over because it helps me get back to sleep quickly. And Few Good Men is on my short list. So I've heard this movie hundreds of times, seen it dozens of times, and I just love the whole feel. In many ways, when I watch it, I feel like I'm watching a VHS because of the cheesy keyboard.
Yep.
Soundtrack, but this is one of my favorites from the 90s. It's hard to put it at number 5, but that's where I'm sticking it.
You can't handle the truth. Good old Jack Nicholson.
That's right. Okay, Luke, what do you got? Number 4.
Number 4. So this is going to be my most on the beaten path film, but as I looked at all of the movies that I was listing out, I couldn't refuse it. It's the #1 movie that sort of influenced a lot of how I watched things as they came out in the 90s, and it's The Matrix.
Ooh.
The original as a piece of cinema that I've seen dissected for its action set pieces, for what it did for camera work, for what it means today because of all the changes that the directors have gone through, to the philosophies that you can overlay on top of it as it comes in. Mm-hmm. It's just a movie that continues to be rich as an experience to revisit.
Yeah, I love Keanu, just as he's kind of a, I don't know, he's not someone that you exactly always go around saying that you love watching, but there's something about him that's just fun. And great soundtrack.
Great soundtrack, yeah.
Great soundtrack. Meat Beat Manifesto was a band that I followed in the late 80s, and all my friends are like, who? What? And they got a track on there, which I thought was awesome. They play, their song plays during the shootout scene in the lobby.
Oh, gotcha. That heavy rolling bassy one.
Yes,
the funk
that's right.
That's in it. That's the one I always recognize, yeah.
Yep, that's them. So, yeah, great film. All right, Mike, what do you got at number 4?
I'm going to go a little more just plain dumb fun here. Independence Day.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Will Smith punching an alien and saying, hello to Earth, welcome to Earth. That movie was just a gonzo extravaganza, a big dumb fun. Check your brain at the door, watch things blow up.
Awesome film. Yep, I that showed on July 4th here in Washington, D.C. at a really famous destination called the Uptown. It's a movie theater with just one screen. It's gigantic. And I waited in line until around 2 a.m. and couldn't make it. And I wish I could have, but it had been a little bit of a rough day for me.
Yeah, you cue up that Bill Pullman, "This is our Independence Day" speech. I'll run through any wall that you put in front of me. It gets me fired up and hopping out of my chair like I just watched Rocky IV. I am, it is a surge.
My family uses Randy Quaid quotes from that movie all the time.
Oh, yeah. Great at the end, too, when he's flying that plane.
Yep.
Unhinged.
Yep. Great choice. I love it. So number 4 for me, I'm going with a little bit darker side here with Silence of the Lambs, 1991.
Jodie Foster.
Yeah.
Ah, yes.
That is a true classic. And Mike, you know that I love to put things in the Time Crushed Hall of Fame, and that's one for me that has stood the test of time.
Yep, and you've also touched into my favorite genre, horror.
Uh-oh. How does this rank for you in terms of horror?
It's one of the all-time classics. It's more creepy thriller horror than true horror. I felt Hannibal delved more into the horror aspect of it, but Hannibal Lecter was just, not Hannibal Lecter himself, but Anthony, it was just destroyed it as Hannibal Lecter. Anthony Hopkins.
Oh, he did.
It was absolutely delicious. Not to mention Wild Bill. Oh my gosh.
Whew.
It creeps me out every time I watch it.
Nightmares. Yeah. Scott Glenn was great as the FBI, head of the FBI. And of course, Jodie Foster really nailed it.
And you can skip to the end for me because you just revealed my number 2 pick as it comes through here. Silence of the Lambs, I think, is an unquestioned masterpiece. It's one of the few Oscars that I remember watching and just nodding my head going, yep. Oh, they're giving all their awards to one movie? Yeah, no, it's right. That is that's factually correct in every one of those decisions as it comes through. Jodie Foster, one of the great actors that we've ever seen, just doing the part like so few other people ever could have done it. And her synergy with Hopkins, who's scenery chewing, is incredible. And the way that it was filmed is, I think the interesting thing about it to me is because it doesn't feel like horror. It really just feels like thriller. Yeah. But then we get to our set piece at the end, and it's true. I mean, it's classic horror POV. Yeah. It's everything that you see that tells you that you're in, there could have been a kill. And you would have all been back in at Camp Crystal Lake. It's that locked in perspective that kind of draws you into all of the feelings of horrific things that could come. It's really Jonathan Demme, an underrated great director as it comes through.
What else did he direct?
We did, I think famously first, he did the Stop Making Sense concert film. It's probably still the greatest concert film we've ever seen. He was the director on Philadelphia, Tom Hanks film with Denzel. He worked again with Denzel on The Manchurian Candidate. I won't talk about that. And what's the other one? There's another one that I'm not thinking of right now. It's not coming to me. Oh, sorry, I'm looking it up right now. Rachel Getting Married.
Not familiar with that one.
Yeah,
I'd completely forgotten about that movie.
Yeah, it's one of the my team will know if they're listening to this that I struggle with Ms. Hathaway, even though she's a great talent, and that's a movie I liked her more in.
Interesting. And by the way, for those of you who don't live in the Mid-Atlantic where I am, both A Few Good Men and Silence of the Lambs, I think, really capture the essence of fall in this region. It's something that I love about those films, especially A Few Good Men, but it's right there with Silence of the Lambs also. It's just something, it feels like home when I'm watching those. Luckily, Silence of the Lambs not too close to home. Okay, Luke, number 3 on your list. We know you're number 2, but let's go 3.
This was a hard choice because I gave myself certain constraints as I made this list. So I eliminated a lot of, masterful foreign language cinema that really is close to my heart. And I tried to not repeat on directors, which was my challenge here. And so in the closest contest that's ever been held, it's Miller's Crossing by a hair over Fargo for me. And that's another sure sign this is my list. I think if you were to go do the critic surveys and look at metrics, Fargo would win on most stats that they have that come out there. And then for weirdo fanboys, Miller's Crossing doesn't hit Lebowskian levels. But if you were to tell me that the 3 movies were on, which one was I going to watch? It's Miller's Crossing.
I'm going to be the weird one out and say I actually don't like Fargo that much.
Oh.
It just doesn't hit.
No wood chipper?
Buscemi works for me, but the rest of the movie just does not blend for me. I don't know why. I can't put my finger on it. It's not enjoyable, even though I can recognize technical aspects of it that are fantastic.
Well, I will say this, is that the Coens, I had this argument with my friend for a long time, and his position, which I can't argue with him on, is that, most of the Coen movies for a long time, they don't have a very high opinion of people.
No.
And and generally, it feels like you're playing with an even hand, as in Miller's Crossing, where everybody's a little bit terrible.
Yeah.
Some people are more terrible. Turturro, wow, just whoof, just I want to jump on him right now. But in Fargo, they have somebody that's outside of it, which I think for a lot of people they loved because everybody felt like they could lean in to Margie's wholesomeness and that incredible performance.
McDormand is always fantastic in everything she does.
It's so good in that film, but I think there's a dissonance there. I think for some people because it's like that they don't trust it anymore because in that movie they've actually put somebody good in there, and you don't believe that they believe that.
Awesome. All right, Mike.
All right, I'm going to go with a movie that has been a sore spot for home theater enthusiasts for, 10, 15 years?
Oh, boy.
James Cameron has still not released it. It stars the fantastic ex-governor of California, True Lies.
Oh, I love it.
Another completely over-the-top Arnold movie with Jamie Lee Curtis in that dance scene, which haunts every boy's memory from the 90s. And Bill Pullman hamming it up as a sleazeball. It was absolutely fantastic.
It was.
It's one of the epitomes of giant Arnold at his peak, just unleashing his persona on screen.
It's a phenomenal film.
And it had a massive supporting cast, too.
Oh, yeah.
Tom Arnold, Elijah Dushku as a baby, Bill Pullman as a background character. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. It's probably one of my most rewatched Arnold movies over the years, even above Terminator 2.
Wow. Obviously, you're watching it on VHS.
I actually have a digital capture of one of the 1080p streams.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
It's a 100 gigabyte file in MPEG 2, but it was worth it to get the only decent copy out there.
And Michael, have you seen La Totale?
Yes.
The French film that it was based on as it came through. I mean,
I enjoyed that one almost more.
Is it worth watching?
It's interesting to say the least.
Okay. I have to say the bathroom fight scene in True Lies that supposedly was supposed to take place at the Georgetown Mall, which is somewhere that I've gone quite a few times in my life. What a great fight scene. Mm-hmm. The gunshots as he's sliding along the wet ground and slamming the guy's face in the urinal. You can't get much better than that.
And it's another one of those movies I think that's really interesting that shows that James Cameron really does have an incredible ear as a screenwriter. Mm-hmm. It's not the kind of screenwriting that is going to show up in many awards show. It's deeply genre as it comes in, but it is 100% appropriate for the content that it's doing, and it's really clever by twists and turns, and really well realized for the cast.
And it's one that I hope we see make its way onto 4K.
Knock on surface.
Not sure if it's going to happen. I have a sneaking suspicion that the content in the movie is something that he's probably going to skip
Tone
over.
down.
But
Yeah, I think they tried to tweak that with, what was it? Kurt Russell.
Big Trouble in Little China.
No. The one up in the air where they're boarding the plane.
Oh, executive
I kept wanting to
decision.
say Event Horizon, but executive decision.
Yeah.
That's what it is. They tried to do that by cutting a few scenes, and it didn't go over well with fans, so they just kind of left it as is. And I'm wondering if Cameron's pulling the same mental process.
Yeah.
By not releasing it. But at the same time, he hasn't released The Abyss yet either.
Right.
Part of me wonders if he's just such an OCD perfectionist, then unless he can have both hands buried deep in the project, he's not going to do it at all. And he's so absorbed with the Avatar sequels that I just don't see it happening.
Which he has said on Twitter that they are coming, that he's aware that people want them and they're coming. But that was quite a few years ago.
As South Park famously said, James Cameron does what James Cameron does for James.
And we're all bearing the brunt of it. Okay, so for me, for number 3, this is actually one of my probably top 5 favorite movies of all time. The Usual Suspects, 1995.
Kevin Spacey.
And that's the thing. Kevin Spacey has kind of ruined it for me in some ways, but I watched it about a month ago and fell in love with it all over again.
Yeah, the performance in that are perfect.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a brilliantly conceived and executed movie.
The first time you see the twist, it's such a shocking twist.
Oh, yeah.
And Edward Norton is phenomenal as always.
Benicio del Toro is great. I mean, him in the lineup when he's repeating the phrase the cops are having him repeat. I mean, it's just
so good.
So good. So on point.
Benicio del Toro is another one of my fan favorites.
Yeah, he's really good. But yeah, Bryan Singer hit it out of the park with that one. And tough to put that one at 3 for me, but that's where it's going to land. So, Luke, we got you, Silence of the Lambs, at number 2. Mike?
I had movie, ironically starring Benicio del Toro in it. I was going to be putting his number 2, and then I realized, wait a second, it came out in 2000 by only a few months, and that would have been Snatch. But I'm going to go for Michael Douglas with The Game.
Yeah,
ooh,
that's a great one.
Sean Penn, Michael Douglas, one of the most insanely twisted Finch movies in terms of like thrillers that don't blow the mind, but are exceptional at the puzzle building.
Yes.
I can
so
watch that movie
rewatchable,
even knowing the twist, and still get stuff out of it every time I watch.
I agree 100%. That is a rewatchable movie like no other.
My Criterion Blu-ray is my baby.
I have the same one. It's just I mean, there's something about Michael Douglas also, the way he delivers lines, as this kind of rich guy. He did it also in Wall Street.
Both have an extremely visceral way of talking.
Oh, they do. Coffee, right? Get a cup of coffee. I mean, that's a great, great flick.
I always think of Kurt as the classic Western actor and Michael as the 1980s and 1990s sleazeball actor. Starring apart with Demi Moore, stuff like that.
Greed is good.
Exactly.
Greed
and he does
good.
it so well. He comes across as such a sleek, snobby jackass, yet at the same time, a family man if he wants to be.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So for my number 2, and this is probably my number 3 favorite movie of all time. It's The Rock. 1996, Michael Bay.
That's a close one for me too.
That's probably one of the reasons why I loved Ambulance so much. But The Rock is a movie I've seen dozens and dozens of times. And
losers do their best.
Right. Well, Carla was the prom queen. Right?
I died in Ambulance when they started bringing in Michael Bay lines, including that "losers do their best" line. I was just in there, rewind.
Yeah. Yeah, but Sean Connery, I mean, to me, that might be the pinnacle of his acting career. From my perspective, he just nailed that part so well. And Nick Cage, I mean, give him credit. I mean, he definitely delivered to.
Nick Cage is the straight man. Like, who knew that was even possible?
And at the same time, he still pulled his normal eye-twitching craziness that he would pull sometime during the movie.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he kind of brought it in somehow.
That was right in his wheelhouse of movies too, right? I mean, he had a number of them throughout the mid-90s.
During the 90s and early 2000s, he was an unstoppable machine. He was bankable like nobody else.
Yep.
All the way up until they finished off, what was it, the National Treasure movies, and I think maybe one or two past that.
Right.
Was when he had his fall from grace.
Yeah.
Although, I hate to interrupt just for one moment, but bringing back to one of the 2022 hits of the year that I was shocked at, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent with him.
So
Pablo was absolutely shockingly good.
There's very few actors that would have the willingness to show up and play themselves but not themselves in a movie in that fashion. And Pablo's crazed. Like it was wonderful to watch the two of them together.
Oh, it was absolutely fantastic. It may not have been like the best movie of the year type thing, but I had a ball.
Yeah, 100% worth the watch.
Yeah. Excellent movie.
All right, sorry. Back to Jordan.
Okay. All right. Luke, drum roll.
So
This is your number one.
I want to be clear is that this number one movie is going to define it as my list. That there was no risk in any way, shape, or form of me having any overlap with anybody else by putting this movie on the list. This is not a Whom Theater Enthusiast's choice that I'm putting on it as I come through. But I looked at all the movies in the 90s, and this is one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time. So it's going to make the list. If it's on versus any other movie that I looked at in the 1990s, I will watch this ahead of it every time. It is Big Night.
Interesting.
You're going to be had to do a blank there. I'm not familiar with it.
So I'm not either.
Big Night it's a small indie film that came out in the mid-90s. It was directed by Campbell Scott and Stanley Tucci together.
Holy cow, Campbell Scott.
And it stars Stanley Tucci and Tony Shalhoub as two brothers that are running a small Italian restaurant in the 1950s and making food that would make it a runaway hit today, authentic Italian cuisine, that nobody in America wants. They want spaghetti and meatballs as they're coming through.
Before I've seen some of those clips that I'm seeing.
Yeah, and they strike a deal with the crazed, hilariously Italian businessman next door, played by Ian Holm, to have Louis Prima come to their restaurant for one big dinner that's going to save their restaurant. And Stanley Tucci is Secundo, the desperate businessman, and Tony Shalhoub is his brother, the chef, who is ultra demanding. And it is a true treat. So if you get a chance, find a way to pull it in and take a watch. It is an absolute delight, and it has some of the most, it be ready to eat. It has some of the best food scenes ever put onto film.
Awesome. I just bought it, so I will be watching that.
Perfecto.
Mike.
All right.
That's a tough one to follow up, one that we've never heard of. I'm actually surprised
that was one that I actually was sitting there going, wait, have I not heard of this? I'm actually going to have a Tony Shalhoub movie as well as my number one. I fought really hard over this one. I was going to say The Matrix at first, simply because of how much I enjoyed it as a teenager. But I watched it so many times, I'm slightly burnt out.
Sure.
Not meaning I don't enjoy it. I love it as one of the most seminal action sci-fi movies of the turn of the century that influenced sci-fi movies for decades.
Yeah.
But I've lost that enjoyment because I saw it so many times, I'm too familiar with it. And then I started going back. I have a huge love of the martial arts genre, as Todd knows. So I was thinking Van Damme, Jackie Chan, and then it finally hit me. The movie that I put on when I can't sleep, the movie I'll just giggle myself to sleep to, Galaxy Quest from 1999.
I'm so glad that made somebody's list.
The absolute perfect Star Trek comedy ripoff, parody, whatever you want to call it, satire. It's done so deliciously. Everyone is into the role and just having a ball with it. Tim Allen is just beyond ridiculous, as Tim Allen always is. And even Sigourney Weaver, as iconic as she is, just loses herself in the bimbo role.
And Sam Rockwell as the red shirt
As Guy, yes.
is just, I mean,
That was
something
the
to
movie
behold.
that made me love Sam Rockwell and why I wanted to go see Moon so much when it came out.
Mm.
But yeah, he was absolutely phenomenal as Guy. And Tony Shalhoub as just the calm, chill engineer.
That's a great pick. Boy, I'm surprised by both of yours.
All right, Todd, shock us with your big revelation.
All right. Well, I'm actually going boring on you guys, but this is one probably actually my second favorite film of all time. It's John McTiernan, Hunt for Red October.
Yes.
Oh, good. It is a classic.
That's just another one of mine that just I've seen it a bazillion times, and Sean Connery does it for me.
It is not a bad choice at all.
No, I love The Hunt for Red October. I think it's also part of that fascinating universe where we got Alec Baldwin in a part that is seeing so much extraordinary traffic as it comes through.
Oh yeah,
and I loved him in it. I loved Alec Baldwining his way through that. I thought he was just phenomenal to watch.
Yeah, he was great. He's another guy like Michael Douglas that really delivers, his lines in a certain way that just make him so appealing.
I still think McTiernan's most underrated hit has to be 13th Warrior, though.
I've never seen that.
Antonio Banderas as a meeting up with Vikings. It's intense.
It is intense. It is really, it's really good.
And also one of the most un-McTiernan movies.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're talking about McTiernan, your heart goes immediately to Dying Hard.
Exactly.
There's the blueprint for all of the good stuff you're going to see in his other films.
And of course, Predator.
Yeah, Die Hard and Predator. I mean, Die Hard is everyone's favorite movie, it seems, for a good reason.
Movie ever.
It really is.
Michael, what are some of the hardest cuts you had to make this list? Are there movies that just missed out for you?
Yeah, there were at least half a dozen that I can think of. Like I said, The Rock was actually one of them. The Rock, The Matrix, as I mentioned before, and I'm going to go real cheesy here because this was like my childhood movie that I watched so many times. I burnt out the VHS, cracked the DVD, and still hold the Blu-ray in good condition, and that was the Muscles from Brussels himself, double the Van Damage, Time Cop.
Time Cop, a masterpiece. A masterpiece. Will he do the splits in that painful way? Yes, it's coming.
Oh, man. I love it.
That was probably the most accessible movie he ever did that wasn't just, I'm a martial arts movie.
Yeah.
That was his most blockbuster style. And it was right in the middle of that early 1990s cheese where the CGI was awful. Horror films were forever in the same boat. 80s was fantastic for horror. I will always say the 80s was my peak love for horror. Then the 90s just CGI'd everything with doom, gloom, glowing red CGI. And the same thing happened with here when they were trying to do the blending of the two people together, the bursting. Yeah. It's just awful CGI, but it's horribly fun.
We did see Scream, though, right?
Oh, yeah. The new one?
Yeah. No. And
the original.
The original in 90. Wasn't that mid-90s?
That's mid-90s.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Scream was, I think the first two were mid-90s at least.
Yeah.
Maybe even the third.
Yeah, and the horror movie that almost made my list because it's been in top of mind recently, and I had to edit it out because I think if in the fullness of time I wouldn't necessarily have it there, but it's definitely high on my list. Is the original Candyman is something else for me. It is with that insane Philip Glass score and a movie as much with some spectacular jump scares, but also a movie as much about myth making as it was about the horror experience that it was driving into. Really such a delightful film. I revisited that recently.
And ironically, the last horror movie that I cut from this list, because I actually reviewed just a week ago, Event Horizon.
Yeah.
Paul W.S. Anderson's probably his best film to date in terms of like structurally.
100%.
I think I still love Soldier, but it's my love of dumb action movies that puts it up there with it.
Well, I'm surprised that no mention of Pulp Fiction and Shawshank Redemption.
Shawshank Redemption is a fantastic movie, and you remember when you read my review, I had never seen it before until the 4K review came out.
I still can't believe it.
It was one of those movies that I kept saying, "Oh, I've got to watch it." I owned the DVD, I owned the Blu-ray, and it just never came up. When you have an enormous collection, you just go, "I'll watch that next time. I'll watch that next time," and it just became one of those 2 decades down the road. I better watch this.
That took some guts admitting that too.
Well, we all have them. We all have those movies. We just haven't quite gotten around to that. We know are lingering there in the background. It is Shawshank. I love that you bring that up because I ask everybody that we interview here at this company what their favorite movie is, and number one with a bullet, ahead of everything else, ahead of any Godfathers, well ahead of any Citizen Kanes. Shawshank is the number one movie that just regular people I'm interviewing think that's my favorite movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's got this real resonance with people as it comes through. But I personalized it, and I kept asking myself when I ran into these hard questions, where do I put the piano on the list? Where do I put Billy Madison, which is the hardest that I've ever laughed at a movie? Can I fit in Shallow Grave, which for sick reasons I love and deep in my heart of hearts? I put each one of those up against the other movies as I was coming through, and I asked myself, what would you rather watch right now? That's going to be the thing that shapes it. And then once I got the list down, I asked myself, what would I rather watch the most out of all of these movies? And that's sort of how I set my stack.
Yeah, you know what's really amazing, too, about the 90s? If you look at year by year the releases, every year is just stocked full of incredible titles.
100%.
You know, recognizable ones are like number 25 on the list.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was that, Mike?
I was just saying the 80s and 90s were both stacked to the gills with just movie after movie after movie. And I was actually talking with a friend in depth for a couple hours. We were talking about action movies and how I have a huge love of action movies. The 80s and 90s are irreplaceable, and it seems like they're unrepeatable.
Yeah.
Well, not just for the action, but for the actual filmography of action, the amount of skill in the stuntmen used, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It just CGI and higher technology has made it less and less appealing to studios to use that old stuff, but it is an unreplicatable draw whenever I go back and watch one of them going, I just do not see that anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. It was a different time.
And you'll see people discover those things. They'll see when practical effects can get you something that looks more interesting. You'll see directors start to lean into that as it comes through. It's, we're in another, Wild West era where streaming is out there. So there's all these incredible channels that exist for some content to get in front of people. It's leaning episodic, sort of in its highest set of content that's coming into the field. But I think it's just a matter of time before people reinvent how those other things come through. When do they realize that, all the time in CGI only buys you so many eyeballs, but getting some really good stuntmen is going to get you something else? Mm-hmm. Where is independent cinema going to actually develop a place that it's got fertile ground? I mean, that's a huge part of what drove how much stuff existed out there in the 90s and 80s, is that independent cinema became real and it became profitable, and there was a channel to develop in order to pour it into. And it's not that those things have gone away. People still want to watch great movies. Oh, yeah. So it's just a matter of who's going to crack that code. How is somebody going to figure out a way to? I'm waiting for Stevie Soderbergh to come up with some brilliant idea and start to seed something that's going to allow it to happen. Because we have these people that have these brilliant minds, and you want them to help create these development channels that can get great content in front of people in a more regular fashion.
For sure.
And then I want to put them on my store. That's what I want to do.
We've Josh Gershman is chiming in chat. He says, what about the Blair Witch Project?
Oh, the movie that gave me headaches.
I tell you this.
High school, and that literally gave me blistering headaches when I walked out.
It's an incredible movie that, it's the number one movie that I know that the people have gone to see, and they came out and they thought making movies was possible. Mm-hmm. Because they all thought I could have done that. And on one hand, they're right. They could have sort of assembled the pieces and the components, but you got to give the folks that made Blair Witch credit. There's a couple of things that they had, and they're the fake story that fed the idea of whether it was true or not. Like the way that it invigorated the concept of found footage was incredible. And I tell you what, I still have friends that all it takes to freak them out is for me to go stand in a corner and put my head down. Like there are a handful of visual images that they establish in that piece, especially in that chaotic ending.
Video on the screen.
That's exactly right. That's just going to come up, and it's just going to be a stitched together little doll made out of hair and twigs.
That was a very eerie scene at the end of that movie, for sure.
I've got to admit, I have a love-hate relationship with that movie because I love how unique it was for the time, but I also hate the era that it ushered in with 5 billion paranormal activities, that type of oversaturation of the market with easy, cheap movies that cost almost nothing to make and made profit.
Right. But at the same time, I think it reinvigorated the horror channel, and I think that's where a lot of the great auteurs are starting out. You know, I mean, I don't think that we're going to see a lot more horror from Ari Aster, but I thought his movies were, you know, the 2 movies he came out with most recently, Midsommar and I'm drawing a blank. What's the one with Toni Collette with the terrible family story?
Shoot, Hereditary?
Hereditary. Spectacular films,
I
beautifully
enjoyed
shot.
Hereditary. I have not seen Midsommar yet.
They're big swings. That's what I have to say. Yeah, that's what they are. And you know, you want that ground for people to get started out in. The last Godzilla film, which I really enjoyed. I thought it was a great action set piece movie. I ate every little bit of my popcorn as I sat there and watched it. The guy that directed that had his sort of breakthrough film with You're Next, which is sort of a wonderful home invasion horror film from the 2000s, which I really liked.
You're Next and The Guest were 2 of my favorite surprise hit type horror movies.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, listen, guys, we're coming up on an hour and a half. Luke, I have one question from a viewer about content on Kaleidescape.
Happy to answer whatever I can.
He says, why the lack of DTSX variant if it's available on the physical disc? The Bourne franchise, for example, comes to mind.
Yeah, sure. No, it's a fair question. So I think the thing that happens is that the licensors decide what audio tracks they make available for what market. So they're making a decision somewhere in there, and whether it's a cost decision, whether they're trying to hold something back to make these other experiences special in this way, whether they think that there's going to be complications broadly implementing it in the digital market, whatever goes into it, they've made a decision about what they're going to actually include in the package that comes out. We are constantly in dialogue with them about getting us all of the best assets that they can make available to us. So whatever you see on our store, that's the best asset that they can make available to us. And we got it finished, formalized, put out into a lossless format so you can enjoy it.
Does the same hold true for movies that were not released in 4K originally, but are coming out on 4K disc? You know, there's some movies in the library that are still Blu-ray quality or 1080p as opposed to 4K. Is that driven by Kaleidescape just not asking for an update, or
it's never driven by us not asking for the most of my job is just continuing to knock on the door. We're constantly asking for things. A lot of it's about the pipeline, just getting ourselves slotted into the priority queue. And we have a small team here, so we set a priority for how we get those things through. But anytime that something's going to be available digitally in 4K that we think's a high enough quality line in order for us to get it out there in front of our audience, we're going to do it.
Okay.
So
awesome.
You would, just as an announcement to put it out today, you'll see today West Side Story is available on the store in UHD. That's the version that they had available to come through. We're really excited to get that out there. That movie is, if we were doing this for about the 60s instead of the 90s, that would be probably top of my list. It's a masterpiece.
Awesome. Well, maybe next time we can run down through a different decade. It's been a lot of fun listening to you guys talk shop. You know so much about movies, both of you. And I really appreciate you taking an hour and a half out of your day to join me and talk shop.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Todd. I really appreciate it. Michael, it's always a pleasure to meet you here on online. It's great to hear your thoughts on the movies.
Same with you too, Luke.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for hanging out, and thank you to everyone who joined and watched us online today. And of course, this is going to be on YouTube, so if you want to go back and rewatch, or if you're just catching it at the end and you'd like to hear what Luke had to say more about on the Kaleidescape side of things at the beginning of our show, please go back and check it out. Aside from that, we will be returning very, very soon with another AV Nirvana Live, and I think it's going to be with Robert Zone. If not, we'll be hitting up SVS. So thanks again for joining us, and have a great night. If you enjoy content like this, hit like, subscribe, and then join the conversation on avnirvana.com.